my practice partner, my wing woman who got me through the final stages of my certification, Jessica Adio. She is a occupational therapist and a nervous system coach. And I'm telling you, thank goodness she was my partner, because I totally needed to regulate my nervous system during that weekend. And it was fabulous. Prior to meeting or having Jessica as my partner, we actually teamed up a little bit earlier for a back pocket psychic day. But before we go into that, Jessica, do you mind telling my audience who you are, what you do, and what you're all about?
Absolutely. So I am Jessica Adio, and for about 17 years, I have practiced occupational therapy working with children. So in pediatrics, working on sensory processing and their nervous systems and their development. And somewhere in between my second and third child being born, I had this realization that I too have a nervous system. Who would have thunk it?
Who would have known?
Right? It was one of those moments where I was like, well, duh. And the truth is, my ability to show up as a mom, as a wife, as a therapist, just as a human, having the human experience, living a busy and full life, like my capacity to do that is directly related to the state of my nervous system. And I'm super fortunate because I know how to support that state in moments of stress or anxiety or overwhelm. And that's what I do. And that's what I teach other women now, because once I made this connection, it was like, I've never had such a light bulb moment. I just knew that it was something I needed. Like, I couldn't just keep this to myself. I needed to share it with anyone and everyone who would listen. And so that is basically what I do now.
That's amazing. That's totally amazing. 3 kids, an entrepreneur. You got it going on, girl. No wonder why you need, you know, that knowledge of your nervous system. My goodness, that's amazing. That's so cool.
When people ask me, how do you do it? I'm like, I regulate my nervous system. I don't have another answer. Like, that is the consistent answer because it's the truth.
That's amazing. That's so cool. So let's dive into a little bit about nervous system, how the program Anchor, all that other juicy stuff.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to my listeners, I met Jessica before I enrolled in the Anchored program by Julie Costa. And we had a session, what was called the Back Pocket Psychic. Jessica had a day with me. And if you can remember at that time, do you mind sharing what came about or what happened?
So it's so funny because I feel like it's a similar topic to what we ended up working on in our Anchored weekend.
I know.
And I'm just going to say it bluntly because that's the best way to say it. Money is really dysregulating to my nervous system. I often worry about money. Where is it coming from? Is there enough? Have I done something wrong? And those moments where we do feel a little bit squeezed. And so I am pretty sure in the back pocket day, that's what I went in hard on. Like, give me the deets. What is going on? What do I need to do? What am I doing wrong? And the reassurance I got then, as well as the reassurance that I got when we were together and Anchored, it's like, you're doing nothing wrong. It's all there for you. You are perfectly safe. And even this morning and this weekend, I was moving through some money related dysregulation. And, you know, I did all my things, right? I did some energy clearings. I did some mindset work. I took some action. And for me, until I move that energy through and out of my body, the other stuff isn't as effective. Right. So it elicits what I would call a fight flight response where, like, I'm really anxious and a lot of anxiety. And so how I moved it out is I put my hands on the wall and pushed really hard, because if I was fighting a bear in the woods, guess what? Those muscles, you know, I'd be like throwing punches, doing tons of stuff. And your body doesn't necessarily know the difference. Right. So once that chain reaction gets set off, to your body, it is a bear in the woods, even though for you, you're just hoping to make another sale. And somehow it's like registered as that. So that's really how I put the two together. It's what you supported me in both in the spring when we had our back pocket day. And
Yeah.
you really told me things that I was like, oh yeah, I know that. But it felt so good to hear it and to
Absolutely.
hear that it was coming like, I mean, I love you, Rhonda, the person, but to hear that it was coming from like somewhere.
A higher source.
Thank you. Yeah. Like, like, okay. And I'm actually, when we get off this call, I'm going to go back and find that Voxer chat and like scroll through, because I know everything you said then still applies now.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. So you know what? I know that there are a lot of people that struggle with the money dysregulation, I'll call it.
Yes.
So I think this is going to be a good topic. Let's talk about that for a little bit more. Before we dig deeper, I love that where you push on the wall and you're just like, get out of my way. Get out of my way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Is that what you teach your clients as well?
Yep. And I teach a whole variety. Like there's many, many ways that you could do that. It has to be a way that feels good for you. And so the big, like, quote unquote lesson is, how do you move this out of your cells, right? The muscles in your body, they're on the fight flight path. So what do we do to move that out of your body? And then let's keep going back in and layering in the mindset work and, layering in the other techniques. But what I teach my clients is, if you don't move it out of your body, you will be circling back and back and back to those other techniques and tools. Your body has held on to it.
Really? Okay. And how do you incorporate some of the modalities for anchored into this? Do they have to move that energy first and then you pull in the other modalities?
That's what works best for me. I don't think that that's like a requirement, but via the vagus nerve, 80% of the information is going from your body up to the brain, right? So that's how much your body is involved in your different stress states and managing them. 20% of the information is going from the brain back down to the body. So I call the body up, bottom up regulation, and the brain down, top down. To me, I'm going to work with the 80% first, right? Like that just makes sense to me. But that 20% is really strong, right? As we know, as we learned in Julie's program. And a lot of the ways that I use these modalities as well is our autopilots, right? So this money dysregulation, I didn't just stumble upon it yesterday or last spring. It's about how money was talked about when I was growing up, how money was in my home growing up. I'm sure it even goes back further than that for my parents and their families, right?
Yes.
So I have a certain autopilot that I will jump into in response to this type of stress. And so I really, really love the work that Julie offers to rearrange those autopilots. So that it's sort of like, if you think about when you're on a flight and they show like, we're leaving JFK and we're going to Jamaica, that's the autopilot, right? Like, oh, a money stressor came up, I should definitely freak out. And I want to reroute that to something else that's a little more productive. And that's where I really think the subconscious reprogramming and any of the things that fall under that umbrella can be really, really supportive.
Oh man, that's amazing. I can tell you right now, there's me included. Like I'm not speaking for the masses that are listening. I'm speaking for me. I know that I struggle in the past, present, and I'm sure it's going to come up in the future. Being in sales, it's like an up and down roller coaster, right? And when you're on, and you're having a great time and you're pulling in those sales and those customers are knocking at your door and things are going really well. But it's when those months that, for me in particular, it's the cycle. I grab on and think, oh my gosh, how am I going to make my quota? How am I going to do this? What is the commission going to come in? And it just throws me right off my groove. But now that you mentioned pushing on the wall or finding something that moves my energy the way it does, I am going to implement that.
Yeah.
then because I know it's going to happen again. That's the thing in sales, right? Whether it be your executive or an entrepreneur, there is always the ebb and flow of sales.
And when your nervous system is very dependent upon external circumstances,
yes,
you feel this so much more. Instead, if you can say, and not just say, but if your nervous system can sort of register, like, I am safe despite these external circumstances, that's how you can manage those ebb and flows. And so it's not about never feeling them.
That's right.
Because that would be dysregulation in a different way. It's more about...
we don't need any more dysregulation.
Right. It's more about like, oh yeah, I'm feeling fight flight, right? I could tell because this is how I think when I'm in fight flight. This is how I feel. And this is what my body does. And you're going to address all three of those spaces to come back to regulation. I have found that there's a lot of chatter about how you think and how you feel. And that's a very important chatter.
Yeah.
But I don't know that people are, or I think people are starting to now tap into like, how did this land in my body? And I don't necessarily mean, I think somatic, like exercise programs they're like plentiful on the internet these days. I think they can be useful, but I think it's more important to recognize your nervous system state and know how to move that through your body. Because even once you've released all the trauma in your body, even if you were to live in full isolation, you would experience another stressor. Like there's no escaping that. So it's more so the reframe and the empowerment to do it yourself that I find useful for myself and my clients.
Yes. This is like, this is an incredible meeting today because I can feel that in myself right now. And it's just, as I always say, Spirit knows exactly who to team people up with, where to go, what to say, and, bringing us together for a 6-month container, getting to know each other previously, and then having that impact. You personally have had such a huge impact on that weekend with me that you took me through my timeline and my goal. And it was a beautiful thing that you did for me without actually knowing deep down inside what was going on in me. It's like you could sense it or see it, or I don't know. Tell my listeners, how can you see it in people?
Yes. Well, I also think being in your presence brought it out in me.
True.
Even when you were the coach and I was the client,
yeah,
I was like, oh wow, like you are, like we've peeled back many layers. Like you're jumping right in.
Yes.
I absolutely do use my intuition in my own life and in my coaching. Yeah. I'm a huge science gal, right? Like so any recommendation I make for someone, I'm always science first. And I'm really passionate about that because the nervous system's having a moment. Everyone's talking about it. And while I love that, I also feel just really strongly that that's science. I studied that science so hard. I still do. And I want it to be given its full due, right? I never want to see a post that's maybe the science got a bit construed and be like, oh, I tried that and it didn't work for me. So nervous system work isn't for me. Every human has a nervous system. It's for everyone.
Absolutely.
It's just understanding your own. So I come from science first, but then there's a million ways that this work can play out and be implemented. And that's where I think the intuition piece comes. And I really want to teach my clients to have that self-intuition, right? It's actually, it's a sensory system called interoception, but more than the science piece of it, we work a lot on what does my body need today? Because I know I do this, right? We set up these routines and rituals. I'm going to get up every day at 5 a.m. and go for a walk. Let's just say that's your ritual.
Yeah.
But what if that's not what your body needs that day? And if your nervous system regulation is so hinged on this routine that you've put into place that you sort of autopilot through, you're kind of missing the mark. And so that's where that piece of things comes in for me, that I really want people to be able to turn to themselves and be like, what do I need? The second you do that, your nervous system's like, phew, she's listening. You don't have to keep sending the loud ass smoke alarm, right? She got the message. So one, you're going to feel more regulated immediately. And two, you're going to do the thing that you need to do in less time, which
True.
I'm a mother of three. My kids are 6 and under. So
oh my goodness,
I don't have an hour to waste, right? Like
No.
if I'm doing the thing, I really, really need it to be as close to the best thing for my nervous system as it can be.
Yeah.
And without asking that question first, I'm not going to get the right answer.
That's right. That's right. And honestly, that's where I'm coming from as well, because a lot of people come to me for spiritual guidance, and I absolutely love that. But I know that they've got the answers within them, and they just need that little bit of quietness or, maybe a little bit of guidance to help them understand their own intuition. But I love that you are helping them not only with their intuition, but how to regulate their own nervous system.
Yes. There's no blanket statements. I could never say, everybody do this and it will regulate you. The most I can say to that is, everyone practice checking in with your own body. That's where the answer is for what will regulate you. And then really, I'm just a conduit to giving you that information and helping you implement how to do it over and over and over again. As we learned from Julie and Anchored, our brains love repetition. I would say our bodies love repetition too. And so that's really my role, right? Like I am the repetition that keeps turning it back towards you, because your nervous system knows, and anything it's doing, any dysregulation you're having is just your nervous system trying to keep you safe. It legitimately thinks there's a bear in the woods. So of course it's going to respond that way. It's just, you need to learn how to pay attention to that.
Oh my gosh. I definitely need to start paying attention a little bit more. There's, like I said, there's some days I'm like right off the charts.
Yeah.
But that's an amazing marrying of your body, mind, and soul. Like, holy smokes.
Yes.
Wow. I could go on for a long time on this. And I believe that there is going to be a time when you're going to come back on and we're going to talk about maybe another type of nervous system regulation. Yeah. Money is a huge one. So if you want to continue on that, that's fine. But I know that things are going to start opening up for you in this area, because you are science. You've got the woo and the do down pat, right? Like you got that, girl. You got it. So I'm super excited. Why don't you tell my listeners where they can find you? Yes. And at the end, I want you to tell my listeners a little nugget that they can take forward with them until they find you, connect with you. So let me know.
Okay. So you can find me. Instagram is probably where I'm the most active. It's my name, Jessica R. Adio. As I mentioned, I have 3 kids under 6. So a lot of what I talk about there is how I take this work and I put it into parenting and my family life. That's a big chunk of that. If you go to my website, I'm super creative, jessicaradio.com.
I know, mine's like that.
Just my name. You'll see a little bit more of the broader spectrum of how this nervous system work can be applied. So if you're listening and you are a mom, like I would say run, don't walk. This is the piece of parenting that has been missing. Excuse me. And if you're not a mom, but you resonate with some of what we spoke about, or if your children are grown or any other variety, still reach out, because you have a nervous system as well. I just talk about it a lot in the context of my own personal daily life.
Yes.
And then the nugget, right? So definitely checking in with you. And also, fight, flight isn't bad. Free shutdown, they're not bad. So if you are experiencing high levels of dysregulation, or if you don't even know what that means, if you're just like, I feel overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, I'm like so tired, but then so wired and all the things, your nervous system is trying to protect you. So thank you, nervous system. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then reach out to me so we can give you a path back to the regulated you. But the nugget to take away is that your body's not doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. It's trying to keep you safe. And we just need to like reframe and reroute a little bit.
Oh, that's beautiful. Have you thought of doing, I know this, you said about a mom, or if it resonates, but I'm really feeling the executive part of the world needs this. So pay attention to that, because I believe that that's coming around for you.
And I know we're very close to time, but I will just add this nugget for that group of people. If you are leading a team, right? If you are someone who's high up in your profession and there's people around you that are reporting to you or leaning on you, your nervous system and their nervous system, they are co-regulating. And you really, 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 really want to get this regulation piece right if you want people to be happy, productive, and effective. Because otherwise, you're like missing at least 80% of what they can do. So we didn't talk about that at all, but
that's coming. That we are coming back to that, because I know people want to know about that as well.
Love it. Happy to come back on anytime.
Oh, I cannot wait. Well, thank you so much for being part of it today. We will be getting back on. Absolutely. We're going to make a date as soon as I stop recording. And wow, I am beyond thrilled. So thank you so much for coming on. And I know people are going to find you.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.